Welcome. How you doing, Ty?
Oh, I'm doing all right tonight. I'm here and I'm not at work, so I'm happy about that.
All right, the goal for this first video is to find out what we want from this show. So I'm going to lay out my goals for the show, what I'm hoping that the audience and listeners get out of this, and then I want to hear your thoughts and what you're hoping will come out of all of this.
Okay.
My hope is to give something entertaining primarily. That's the first goal, is to be entertaining. With that entertainment, I'm hoping to be thought-provoking, giving good worldview analysis, biblical worldview analysis of current events, politics, social issues that are going on, that are whatever the hot topic is that week. But overall, I want it to be fun. I want people to tune in because they want to unwind and just laugh a little bit.
Sure.
Because so much of today is just ridiculously serious all the time. And so coming at this obviously from a more conservative worldview, a Christian biblical worldview, but the hope is that people that won't be something that that's a definitional thing for us. When somebody thinks about Reasoned Refrain, they're going to go, "Oh yeah, I like that show. That's fun." Before they go, "Oh yeah, and it makes me think about the Bible, and it makes me think about worldview implications, and it's conservative, and all those other things that we will be probably."
Right.
But the primary thing I want people to think is, that's fun. I just enjoy watching that show. So, what do you think? What do you want out of this? And
I liked how you talked about how things are so ridiculously serious, because the first word in that, there's room to have a lot of fun with things that are ridiculous.
Exactly.
So I think you see ridiculousness throughout. I guess throughout the world, but certainly throughout the political situation. And you even see ridiculousness within social issues. You see ridiculousness within the church, which is humorous obviously to an extent, but nevertheless is worth some gentle ribbing at the very least from time to time.
Yeah. Give me a little bit of your backstory. Let the listeners know where you come from, how you basically view the world, what you think about life and living here, and a little bit about your family. And
okay, I would just start from where I'm from and who I am.
Yeah.
So, I'm Ty Jacobson. I was born in Houston, being that where the hospital is. I grew up in Richmond, Texas. So, with my parents, I have a sister who is 2.5 years younger than me. My parents and my sister now live in Tyler, Texas. So, okay. I'm here in Houston, not by myself because I am married. I've been married now for just over 7 months. So
and it's been bliss the entire time, right?
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. It is a wonderful blessing to be married, and the Lord has blessed me a lot through that, of course.
Your lovely wife's name?
Oh, my wife's name is Kelly.
Kelly.
Yeah.
And so thanks. Well, how'd you become a Christian, and how do you view the world? What are your basic boxes?
Okay.
That you place yourself in?
So the short answer is I'm a Baptist. No,
Fundamentalist Baptist, a 1984 confessional fundamentalist Baptist.
Okay, we get into the Emo Phillips bit right there in a minute, right? No, I grew up in the church. They threw water on me at a Methodist church when I was an infant. I don't remember that, obviously. So. My parents do, but decided they didn't want to stay there. As I generally grew up in a Baptist church, my parents were Christians, so as I understand, they became very committed Christians, either shortly before or around the time, when I was very young, okay. or shortly before I was born. Obviously, I don't remember that aspect of it, but I do for my life as I've known it. My parents have been Christians. My dad was a Sunday school teacher for much of my childhood. And into, beyond when I graduated high school and college, I accepted Christ. I went to an altar call when I was in elementary school. I think it was 1993 or 1984, which would make me 8 or 9 years old. So I was born in 1985 for those who just so you don't have to do the math.
He's really old.
I am really old among my peer group here, but we'll move on from that. a lot of times I'll start talking like I'm older and pretend I can't hear people. But I don't do great impressions, but I do an old man voice from time to time.
You got the whistle on your S's too, so that fits right in.
It was back in the day. We had and I remember when that was invented. They invented water. It was a wonderful day. Because before that, you had to drink tar. But I went up on an altar call at a Christmas Eve service. I remember that, and I actually have the actual date somewhere because I found when my parents were moving a few years ago an actual letter I had written about becoming a Christian at that time. It also said that I believe God's plan for me is to play professional basketball, and I need to be at least 6 feet 1 inch tall. I'm 6 feet tall, even. So obviously, there's your God has a sense of humor. When your pastor gets up there. If I was a pastor, I'd do that, but I'd have a Southern accent, of course, while I said that. God has a sense of humor joke. So I was baptized when I was 13 on my birthday, actually. Which was neat. I was baptized in Sugar Creek Baptist Church in Sugar Land, not too far from where I lived in Richmond.
So you're a Jewish Baptist?
Sure, yeah. I have been mistaken for Jewish. I've got stories about that. I don't know if I should tell them or not.
They'll come out eventually.
As my last name's not uncommon among Jewish people, but I do not have, as far as I know, any Jewish blood. I know there's Jewish people in my family from an extended standpoint, from the fact that they married in, but not as far as being a blood relation that I know of. But yeah.
All right. You mentioned basketball. What are your other normal pastimes, greatest passions outside of, God? Christianity.
I love basketball, watching and playing it. I love to draw. I draw a lot of cartoons. I enjoy that, and from that standpoint, I enjoy watching cartoons quite a bit. So I may relate something to some cartoon I've seen that y'all may or may not have seen. But
I'll tell you, one of the clearest early memories I had when I met you was bonding over Adventures in Odyssey, and the fact that we both knew a lot about the actors behind the Adventures in Odyssey.
I listened to that all the time growing up. We had we'd take family vacations, and my dad had a Toyota Camry that didn't have a tape deck, so we had a boom box in the back seat between me and my sister. And every time we went on vacation, we got a new clamshell case of Adventures in Odyssey tapes.
Yeah, exactly. We had them on discs for me, but it was that big honking thing that had 500 discs of Adventures in Odyssey, and we just churned through them.
This is great. That's great.
Okay. Cool. A little bit about me. So I am 28. I am single, ladies. The main things that I like doing are related to theology and writing and reading theology. I also like to cook, shoot guns, play sports, and talk about Jesus. The story of how I became a Christian, I would guess is fairly normal, at least for the person who's born in the Bible Belt. Kind of similar. Early 5 years old, I was growing up in a Bible-believing church, and they asked me if I wanted to become a Christian. It was done in my Sunday school class. After they explained the gospel, they tossed around a beanbag. And if you caught the beanbag, it was your turn to become a Christian. So it was a very heartfelt conversion.
Okay, the cornhole theology.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And so I go back and forth on whether or not I really was a Christian at 5, or if it was later when I understood my faith more. I do think I understood the basics of the gospel. I understood I was a sinner. I knew that I hit my sister, and that was wrong, and that I needed Jesus to make me better. So I do think that that's my actual conversion. But I've really started growing in my faith in my teen years. Moved off to Singapore in 6th grade, and through interacting with Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and atheists for the first time in my life, I'm trying to figure out what I believe and why what I believe is right and what they believe is wrong. Because growing up in Texas, everybody's either a Christian or a Christian. That's
Yeah. You don't. It's certainly polite enough to not outwardly challenge you. Certainly, when we were growing up, people were polite enough not to outwardly challenge you on your faith here in Texas.
Yeah, particularly growing up in the suburbs. Like, everybody thinks that they're a Christian. So moving to Singapore, I'm coming into contact with people with different worldviews than me. Part of why I like apologetics so much is I got into apologetics in Singapore when I was trying to figure out my faith and what I believed. And through that, really took ownership of my faith, started growing in knowledge and wisdom. I later decided to pursue full-time ministry as a result of flunking out of A&M. Went to A&M for 2 years and then flunked out and was trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life, and realized where I was being used the best and actually being helpful and enjoying myself was when I was at church, serving, teaching, and that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So
Okay. A&M is poor for having lost you, and I say that as a Baylor grad, so I don't know how much credit you can put on that, but nevertheless.
Thanks. Yeah, I flunked out in one semester. That's how bad my grades were. I didn't even get academic probation. It was you're a student in good standing. All right, bye. But sovereignty of God. I am a Calvinist, so I tend to lean pretty heavily on the sovereignty of God. I tend to think He knows what He's doing, even when we are messing up and sinning like crazy. He's in control. He uses those things for His own glory, ultimately.
Amen.
So, what were some of the other things I asked you that I should answer about myself?
Oh, and you talked a little bit about family
Yeah,
background.
That's right. So yeah, parents who are Christians. Found out fairly recently that my dad was not a Christian before me, but growing up I thought that he was. I have an older sister who is not a believer. Be praying for her, and a younger brother who don't know he has Down syndrome. So my favorite person in the world. He means everything to me, and I hope that he'll be saved. Fall on God's grace on that one. But that's my home life. Is right now I live with friends from church. And my parents and brother live in town here. I get to see them regularly. That's good.
I do too. I see them at church pretty often.
Yeah, that's right. They go to your church.
Yeah, they do.
Which is where we met. That was the next thing I wanted to talk about, was how this whole thing got started. Was I've wanted to start a podcast for years, pretty much since I started going in towards ministry. Started at the College of Biblical Studies after I flunked out A&M, and it always kind of been in the back of my mind as something I would like to do, is teach people worldview, apologetics, how to think well through the medium of a podcast, video podcast. And I'd been telling Ty for years as I was working through my master's, look, when I graduate, I'm going to start a podcast, and you and I you're going to write jokes for me, and we're going to sit on camera, and we're going to just joke around and talk about theology and life and stuff. And he was always like, yeah, sure. I wasn't sure how serious you thought I was.
I wasn't sure when you were going to graduate.
It took longer than it was supposed to, that's for sure. But actually, it's a 4-year degree. My master's degree is a 4-year degree, which is insane. Master's degrees aren't supposed to be 4-year degrees. 120 credit hours for a master's.
Wow.
And when I eventually get my PhD, that's going to take me 5 years on top of it. But my plan going in was to do it in 2.5 years, because I was a full-time student. I was going to take a ridiculous course load and go all year round. And I had some advanced standing coming in, so it wasn't going to be a full 120 hours that I had to complete. And then, because I'm terrible at school, I flunked out of the Greek and Hebrew classes once each, and that set me back a whole year. So, and then through getting a full-time job at the seminary, which I work at DTS, Dallas Theological Seminary, shout out to them. I started working full-time there and had to
The Houston branch of it.
The Houston branch
Okay.
of
It's kind of like the
DTS.
Federal Reserve. We're the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas here in Houston, but there's a Houston branch of it.
Yeah, exactly. Royal Bank of Scotland, Ireland.
Yeah.
The Houston branch of DTS is where I work, and at least right now. And I got a full-time job there, built up over collecting part-time jobs, and I had to cut back. So ended up finishing in exactly 4 years. The day I graduated was like 2 days before my matriculation date, 4 years earlier. So
Okay.
yeah, took forever. Finally got it. And then I said, hey, we're doing this. So what was your reaction?
Well, I mean, I was excited because I know you talked about it for quite some time. I know we had that initial meeting on it, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is going to require maybe more time than I thought," but I was willing to give it a go. I had my wife did need to approve on that because it's time away from her.
Story.
If I'm here, unless I may bring her along sometimes. but-
Yeah, she's totally welcome in our studio audience.
yeah,
Which is about for the people you can't see off screen, but there's about, what would you say, about 6 square feet of space over there,
there is. Yeah,
and about 6 square feet of space over there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
yeah. There's a balcony, but I don't think you can see. I don't
Yeah.
think you can see the show from there. Maybe you can hear it.
Yeah, we might be able to pipe it in up there if we draw a large enough crowd.
Yeah, we do. We can make it where they can hear it, and then we'll push a button here that says applause, and
Yeah.
they'll applaud the great insights that we provide.
All right, last big question I want on this kind of introductory video is, what is your biggest fear or struggle that you want listeners, that you think it would be helpful for listeners and viewers to know about you? That this is the thing that I have to battle with regularly.
Oh, so you can tell we didn't prepare for this question because I'm sitting here with this expression on my face.
I prepped him for all the others except for this one.
Yeah,
I wanted to get an
pretty-
authentic reaction.
Pretty much, yeah. That's a good question, and that's something. Just thinking about it at the top of my head, I know I struggle with. With dedicating time. I think to prayer. It's very easy for me to dedicate time to study of the scriptures, because even if I'm not doing it as independently by myself, sometimes I know I'm going to do it here on Sunday when I'm in my I'm legally required to call them Connect groups, not Sunday school classes now.
What's that about?
They renamed them, and they're real insistent on calling them Connect groups. So we'll make fun of that, I'm sure. several
Definitely
times,
changes the
because-
point of them, right?
Yeah, nevertheless, but we do, we study scriptures there. I have a weekly Bible study, and I always study the scriptures there. And I will study outside of it, but certainly I have these times, regimented times I do this. I have the time where I know I'm going to be singing in worship. I have a time in which I know I'm going to be fellowshipping with the Lord with my wife, and we'll read something together or do something like that. But I used to, because I tend to be, you might not know it because I don't keep like a day plan or a calendar, but I do often do kind of the same things every day. I can be very structured and fall into habits. And I used to have this great habit. It's like, I'm going to pray while I'm brushing my teeth. I'm going to pray while I'm brushing my teeth. I've kind of gotten out of the habit of that the last couple of years. And obviously I can pray when I'm not brushing my teeth and do other things, but that habit helped me stay in prayer, helped me stay on task with the things that I intended to pray for, people and activities and just things about in life. I used to keep, when I had my own apartment, I wasn't married and stuff, I'd keep a list of the things I was supposed to pray for there, right by the sink, and I would do it while I was brushing my teeth.
Okay.
Yeah, life changed a little bit. That's not an excuse, but that is what happened, and I struggle with that, and I struggle to break back into that routine, because right now it's not in my routine, and that's weird. When something's out of my routine, it's hard for me to put it back in.
Finding habits that foster godliness.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
That's something that came to mind. I'm
Yeah.
not going to sit here and say that that's my only certainly struggle.
No, I wanted a authentic reaction. So that's
Excuse me.
all right. So tell you mine is kind of two that are very closely related. One, my biggest fear kind of thing is ending up alone. I don't like being single. I go through stages where sometimes I'm pretty comfortable with it, and it's coming more and more the majority of the time where I'm going, I don't like this, but I have trouble expressing those emotions and emotion in general. I have trouble with, which our listeners will learn. That's something I struggle with is actually figuring out how to express emotions. So ending up alone and not having the family, the kids, the wife, the happy home that I want is a big fear. And then tangentially related to that is lust, and my desire for that spurs on lustful, sinful compensation. And so that's something that just is a daily struggle and fight and battle, which I think for most guys it is.
I would vouch for that. It's foolish. Even somebody who's married doesn't to sit here and
go
say
away.
that you don't have those desires or things that that occur, of course. And certainly when I was single, having similar struggles as well.
Yeah. I mean, now you have a nice outlet, right?
No, that's very true. That's very true. I would say that, I don't know, we want to go into talking about that, but it's interesting to hear other people's experiences on it too, where some people would say that becomes greater when they're married. And to some people it becomes easier. I think it's become easier, but that doesn't mean that those types of thoughts go away. That you don't struggle with those. I'd be I'd be lying here to sit here and say that I'm completely pure of such thoughts.
Of course.
That's not true. And my wife's going to probably see this, so she'll sit and she shouldn't like that, but nevertheless it is truth.
And I would assume it's not going to be like a shock to her when she sees a video where you're saying that.
I wouldn't say air all these types of things, but it's something that we've discussed. It's something we discussed when we were dating. It's something we discussed actually quite early when we were dating.
Okay.
I mean, she's like,
that's good.
Have you looked at pornography? Yes. Is it that is it something I do now? No. Is it something I'm tempted to do? That happens.
Yeah. And that's something I'm looking forward to is actually the interplay we'll have where you'll be able to provide the married man's perspective as fresh as you are into the married man's life, but you still are there.
I'll do my best. It's yeah.
And I'll be able to speak for our single guys, and hopefully not for too long.
Yeah. All right, we will work on that. This is a great way to show the world.
Put the word out.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's what I wanted for this intro video. Thanks for being honest, and hopefully our viewers will enjoy getting to know us a little bit better. And see you guys next time.
All right.